everybody. In this video, we're going to learn about how to find the mode of a data set. So take 3 deep breaths and let's make this math easy. All right, so the mode is a measure of center of a data set, and it's one of 3 different ways that we measure the center of a data set. So we have the average or the mean, then we have the median, and the mode is the last one. And in many cases, the mode is the one that we don't use very often because the mean is basically like if you put everything together and spread it out equally, what number describes that amount. And then the median is what number is in the exact center of the data set where half of the data set's below it and half of it is above it. And the mode is basically the number that occurs the most often. So you're looking for the number that's repeated the most often. So the way that you find the mode, or at least this is the way I like to do it, is I list out all of the data points that are repeated, and then I figure out how many times each one of them is repeated. And the data point that's repeated the most often is going to be the mode. So for example, in this data set, the numbers that are repeated are 0, 2, 3 is not repeated, so I won't write that one down. 4 is repeated, 5, 8, and 9 are all of our numbers that are repeated. And I'm just going to go through and tally up how many times each one of these is repeated. So 0 is repeated twice, 2 is repeated 3 times, 4 is repeated twice, 5 is repeated 3 times, 8 is repeated twice, and 9 is repeated 5 times. And so in this case, the mode would be the number 9 because that's the number that's repeated the most often. And you don't necessarily have to go through this process if that's not helpful for you. Sometimes you can just tell by looking at the data set which number is repeated the most often. But this would be a systematic way of finding the mode. And sometimes you may have more than one mode. Like for example, in this data set, the number 8 is repeated twice, and the number 2 is also repeated twice, and all of the other numbers are only repeated once. But the number 2 and the number 8 are both repeated the same amount of times. And so in this case, you would have 2 modes, and the modes would be the number 2 and the number 8. And then sometimes you might not have any modes. Like in this case, there's no numbers that are repeated. And so in this case, there is no mode. And so again, the mode is probably one of the least useful measures of center, but it is still one that can be useful, especially if you have really big data sets. Because if you have hundreds and hundreds of data points, you're definitely going to have some of the data points repeated, and it may be useful to know which ones are repeated the most often. So I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions, let me know, and I hope that you guys have a great day.